Hi, Jen Wheaton. How are you?
I'm fabulous, Dawn Dancing Otter. How are you?
I'm doing well. Every time I get to talk to you, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Um, so, for those of you who are listening in, Jen Wheaton and I are good friends. We've been friends for about a decade. And we'll just introduce ourselves first. I'm Dawn Dancing Otter. I am a teacher and facilitator of rites of passage and ritual. I'm a psychedelic therapist, and I am a master's degree student, and I'm also a teacher of movement and somatic work and body work, and I've worked internationally when I keep doing that thing. And yeah, and I have the grace of having this beautiful, awesome, gorgeous creature as one of my best friends on the planet. So Jen, tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Wheaton, and yeah, I'm essentially a movement specialist. I'm a yoga teacher. I have taught and been a practitioner in the martial arts, which was really a starting point for that experience in more of the Eastern arts and then that exploration of what is beyond what was made available to me for movement as a young person. And my whole life exploded into the realm of teaching, which I've always known I would be. I've known that I would be a teacher of sorts for my entire life. And I didn't know it was going to look like this, but to bring teaching and movement together into a really dynamic environment is it's a dream. I feel like I'm living a dream most times. In the vast majority of my work is with professional athletes or high performance athletes, and I consider anybody who is working in the realm of seeking their own personal human excellence in whatever area that they're functioning in, that they are in the realm of the professional athlete as well. In fact, this morning, one of the athletes that I was working with, we hiked up to the Skaha Bluffs and did their yoga practice there. And that's the type of day that I get to have, which is a real blessing. And in all of it, I'm in a perpetual state of gratitude. And to get to share it with a friend and beloved like Dawn is a true gift. It's everything I could have wanted and asked for.
Mm, yeah, ditto. I feel really well met. We used to teach yoga in the same studio a number of years ago, back when we were both doing classes in that way. And yeah, we've been, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning together and practicing together. And now we are seekers of luxury spa experiences together on a regular basis. Um, so yeah, Jen and I are collaborating on this wonderful immersion, this retreat called Be Worthy Radical Self Love. It's a specialized for women folk retreat up in Sparkling Hill. And we were talking a bit about and sharing a bit about some thoughts we have around developing palettes for your own sense of self-worth, and that has to be sort of in a way something that takes you not just out of your comfort zone, but something that you have to learn how to receive and metabolize on lots of levels. And I think it was something you were saying, Jen, during a podcast that we taped a while back on my podcast, The Witch's Diagnostic, and you were talking about having a palate to metabolize. I think it was teachings at that time, or wisdom, and that if somebody doesn't have a palate for a certain kind of teaching or wisdom, and they don't have experience with it, that it takes a little while for that person to develop a palate for that, so that
Mm-hmm.
they can take in and metabolize the experience, right?
Yeah.
And so we were just sharing a bit about about worth, self-worth, and value, our own value, and how in lots of ways women folk have to kind of tap into developing a palette around that. That it's not, for a lot of women folk, kind of an easy process. Like sometimes it's, we just sort of limit ourselves, create this world where, oh, not for me. That's for like fancy women, or that's for rich women, or that's for like somebody else. It's not for me because whatever your excuse or rule or
Right.
limitation might be. We often limit ourselves because we don't have palettes for some of the challenges that we experience to our worth.
It's almost as if we develop an image of a particular type of person who is going to go and enjoy such a thing. And it's not even just the imagery, it's almost as if we hear that person's voice, we hear the language that they use, we hear the clicking of their heels per se, or the cadence of their step, we hear their movements around objects, and we see their movements around objects and the way that they interact with things. And oftentimes that imagery, that persona of the person who is worthy of, or who has developed a palette for luxury in this case, that they don't look anything like us. And that was something that I had done. In fact, when I would hear about spa experiences without ever having been to a spa or at different points in my life, I had an image of the type of person who would attend these places, who would participate in those experiences. And they looked nothing like me. And they moved nothing like me. That was a big part of it. They smelled nothing like me. They sounded nothing like me. They interacted with the world nothing like me. So that expansion of palette was not necessarily just about expanding something within myself. It was also about understanding how limited I made that experience. There was one ideal person who was allowed to attend those particular events, and there was no chance that I was ever going to look, sound, smell like them. So part of it was actually pushing that imagery aside and making more room for myself, making room for me by carving out that space where limitation had previously existed. So it was a big awakening, really.
Yeah, taking up space is really, like, I know we hear these words a lot nowadays. People talk about taking up space, but I think it's a really legitimate frame of reference. Like the idea that in your case, you had an idea of what that woman who goes to spas experiences in her world, like what her world might look like. But vastly different than your world, and that you wouldn't put a foot into her world. So in lots of ways, taking up space in someone else's in someone else's normal. A lot of times it's sort of like, well, no, I want to take up space in my own normal because this is what I can manage. And then we, want to make changes, like we want to create transformations or changes in our world. And yet, in order to do that, we have to allow ourselves to take up space differently, in a different world, in a different way. We have to let the edges of our world get a little more malleable so we can take up space in other places. Yeah. And unlike you, I have been to many spas, like over my entire adult life. I've been to many spas, like in Europe, in like South America, in like Central America, in Hawaii, all over Canada, in the United States. I've been lots of spas. And I have a real palate for that. I have a real palate for it. And I'm kind of I would say a bit snobby in that regard. So it's funny because when you and I went to Sparkling Hill for the first time, and we went with all the yoga teachers, like all the movement teachers at that studio at the same time, almost like a retreat for the studio, facilitated by the owner of the studio, by the way, Joanne Gagne, amazing woman you are, if you're listening. And thank you so much for that awakening experience to Sparkling Hill. But when we walked in there, so I had like tons of experience in spaces like that. And I was like, what is this place? This place is like next level. Like for me, having taken up a lot of space in spas, I have an expectation. I'm a bit like, you know, if it's not kind of mind blowing is not the word I'm looking for, but if it's sort of not at the frequency of what I consider to be excellent, I'm like, yeah, that's all right. That's a great day. It takes a lot to kind of impress me in that world. But I will tell you, that spa impressed me so much. And the rooms impressed me so much. Like everything, all the details that were meant to show an art form around luxury, like luxury as art, you know,
Yeah.
like everything was so intentional. And so to me, that was a next level experience. And so I was completely in awe as well, but maybe for different reasons. Because for me, I already had this kind of like, I've been to really awe-inspiring places, you know, but to be there and go, wow, like they made the best use out of every view. I've never stayed in a room where I'm like, wow, this view isn't great. Like the views are amazing. They've made the best use out of like every detail of every Swarovski crystal that is anywhere in Sparkling Hill is deliberate.
Yes.
And so, and the saunas and the steam rooms and the cold room and the tropical shower, the scents that are in some of those saunas, like everything that's so intentional in that space is it's very next level. Like it's very meant to create a new experience on a sensory level, even for people who are well experienced with spas and well experienced with hotel rooms, or even well experienced with luxury. Like it's going to impress you no matter what your experience is, I think.
Yeah.
But and expand your palate. It's almost like if you've eaten a ton of really good cheese in your life, and then somebody just puts like the most beautiful applewood cheddar on your plate, and you're like, it's cheddar. What can it do? And then you taste it, and you're like, my lord.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's something that you said there that sparked the feeling for me when walking into Sparkling Hill. And there were the individual moments, but then there was the combination of everything. And every single moment felt so incredibly nourishing. And I suspect that that's what our palate is designed for, is to be able to recognize deep level nourishment, to genuinely be able to recognize it, and that it feels more like a remembering of something as opposed to only an awakening to something new. Because sometimes the new and unfamiliar can feel like too much for the nervous system. However, in that space and in that place, walking through the front door felt like a remembrance at a very foundational, essential nourishment level. That's what it felt like. It felt like it opened my eyes to just the appropriate level, that just the right amount of light would come in, that I would feel soothed in a way. And at that level of soothing, my nervous system would be ready to receive the next thing that was coming, such as the softness of the bed, or the proper firmness of the bed that allowed for a deeper sleep, that in turn would lead to a deeper nourishment, because the body feels so rested, parasympathetic nervous system switches on, and now I'm ready to eat breakfast the next morning and be truly nourished by that meal, where every single bite, again, performed in the most, prepared in the most intentional way, that it not only drew my senses, like the sense of smell towards it, or visually it would be so appealing, but it could almost feel like just the proper salivary glands starting to secrete. So that the food would start to break down even before I started to consume it. It was the whole package. Yeah. So when we think of a palate being opened, and expanded, it is truly a preparation for deep, deep nourishment, which in my experience, from having experienced the other side of it, it's a birthright. It's one of the things that we're here for, is to truly experience deep nourishment. And that open and expanded palate is a welcoming to that nourishment. It's almost like the invitation to the nourishment when it starts to open up. And that particular experience did do that for me. And I felt like after having been there, I began to upgrade certain areas of my life almost unconsciously. That I would surround myself with began to change. It was only the scent that would feel like nourishment to me. So the type of dish soap that I wanted to have was a very particular kind after that. And I felt more inclined to wash dishes afterwards. It was more enjoyable. And it became a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do. When you start expanding the palette, you start to recognize where, in your case, when you're explaining dish soap, even in the mundane field of our world, how, like, for example, I like to have coffee table books because I like to have beauty in my space. I like to have artwork that inspires me in my space. I think, I'm not sure if it was that situation or just like my palette expanding in general, but when I really began to put into play my manifestation around living at the ocean, I had no idea how I was going to make that work, because I didn't at the time have the kind of income that I thought would create that reality, because I live in Esquimalt, which is like on Vancouver Island, little part of Victoria, BC. I don't know if you've heard of this, but BC is a very expensive province. So if you're not in a BC kind of place, the whole thing is, I think BC stands for bring cash. But Victoria in general, like this place is a very expensive place for people to live. Like the cost of living here is really high. And when I came out here, all I could vision for myself was living at the ocean. And I had no idea how I was going to make that happen, but I also didn't cut myself off from what would be possible. And I wasn't afraid to put out there that I was looking for something specific, right? And then it all just totally fell into place when I put that out there, because I didn't limit myself around my circumstances. I didn't say, well, I don't make this much money, so I can never live at the ocean. It's actually quite amazing how everything fell into place so that I live here. And I know you've been to my place and you know how miraculous it is. It's not just that I live at the ocean, but I live in what could be described as a witch castle in a forest at the ocean shore in the city. Right? Which is legit. Like if I was making a list, it would have all of those things on it, So for me, this preciseness by which I manifested where I live, which plays into all the things that I create, that I live here means that I can create many beautiful things and support many people, because I'm already feeling so nourished, like looking out my window at the ocean, at the setting sun, here on the island. And when I walk in the wind, it just feels so nourishing, So when when we describe taking up space in a world that might feel like is sort of next level luxurious, it makes us start to go, well, what's possible for me, not based on my income, but based on what I want, what I want to see happen. This is like what I want is actually important. And I believe that when women say, you know what I want is not negotiable. It's not selfish. It's not over the top. It's not negotiable. What I want oftentimes is to have this for myself so that I can feel healthy enough to look after the people that are around me. Right? Like you and I, we're always looking after people. And so to have a home and a level of care in our world that makes it possible for us to look after people that's a community investment. That's not just a singular person investment, right?
I really want to highlight that, Dawn, because it's so important to understand the sequence of events or the order of things in this, because oftentimes there will be a sense of, I must do this one thing first in order to earn or be worthy of the other thing. So it would be, I must take care of all of these other people. And because I've taken care of all these other people, therefore, I am worthy of the place at the ocean. And it doesn't actually work that way.
Right.
In fact, your claiming of your worth by simply unapologetically and very clearly stating, this is what I want. Now, that came from a place of feeling the nourishment of having that thing, feeling that experience of being in that place. And by being in that place, it makes those acts of service, that capacity for very rich, deep, well-fed, and well understood healing that you provide possible. It's actually part of what makes it possible.
It's part of what makes it possible. Yeah, I mean, I'd be still doing this if I was living in an apartment in the middle of the city with a bunch of traffic. It wouldn't for me be as nourishing, and I'd be limited as to what I could offer, because at some point you reach your capacity when you're not nourished, when you're undernourished, right?
Yeah.
And one of the populations of people that I work with pretty intensely, so my specialty in my work, in my coaching work, is people who are healing from trauma and PTSD. And one of the trauma populations that I work with a lot are women especially, but people in general that are healing from eating disorders, and people that have come into situations where nourishment and being undernourished is actually a big part of what they have lived. And I come to that having almost all of my adult life having had an eating disorder, and really being free of that. Maybe the last, I say free of it, like there are little gremlins that still chirp in the back of my head every once in a while, probably live under my hair, but that chirp a little bit. But I don't feel the need to heed their negative perspectives of me, such that I start restricting and trying to limit how much nourishment I get.
Yeah.
And like to me, like I probably lived a great deal of my adult life and probably most of my teen years, and a great deal of even my like age 3 to 10 years, because the first time I was on a diet I was 3. That crazy. Like almost all I know about dieting is this idea of restriction. So my worth issues, like my sense of worth, the healing piece has been, you know what, you're worthy to be nourished on, like all your cells are worthy of being nourished, because you don't actually know about like any of these tissues, what they're doing on all levels. Like, you know, of course, what your muscles are doing, what your blood vessels are doing, but you don't know what all the tissues are doing in concert with each other. So
Right. Yeah.
I think about being 50, and that, isn't it righteous in some way that I have some padding on my body to take me into my elder years, because I may need that, you know, like I might need that support. And having said that, however much padding or little padding you have, if you don't have a lot of fat on your body, that's fine too. But you don't actually know what the conversation is going on under your skin. So
Mhm.
in order for even your skin, I would say when I look at people's skin and I see the glow, I can tell that body is nourished, right? Like,
Right.
that whatever you think about the shape of my body, look at my skin is glowing, that you know that my body is nourished.
Yeah.
That this body, no matter what size it is, I'm going to nourish it. I'm not going to restrict nourishment,
I
you
love
know?
that.
So
Can you say
um,
that again?
I'm not going to restrict nourishment. My
No
my
matter
body is nourished, no matter what.
no matter what
No
shape your
matter
body.
what. No matter what shape my body is. No matter what shape it is. I
Mm.
won't restrict nourishment, because to nourish the body that you are, you don't know why that shape and size is there. Like, sometimes the shape and size is not actually a direct reflection on, you know, your lack of exercise, or, you know, your macros, or how many calories you eat. That's not exactly how it works. And the science backs me up on that, right? Like, a lot of it is hormonal. We don't actually know why some things happen the way that they do, but restricting nourishment is not, that is just basically taking your body, and instead of trying to understand it, instead of saying, you know what, your value to be nourished is 100%. There's no questions about that,
Yeah.
that your value to be nourished is 100%.
Mm.
But instead of saying the value of my nourishment is 100%, oftentimes we'll go, well, my body is occupying too much space. So I need to restrict the amount of nourishment I put into it, because obviously I'm eating too much, or
Mm.
obviously I'm not exercising hard enough. And as a person who was a professional dancer for many years, and a person who drove myself hard, I was Ashtanga yogi, Kundalini yogi. I was like a CrossFit person. I've like driven my body really hard. Now my ankles and my knees are a bit screwed. You know, um, it's not like that is a natural outcome of performing, but you
Mhm.
know, really, like, so not everyone's going to experience that, but I have. And so it doesn't help me to take my ass and go running, right? It doesn't help my body to do that. What helps my body is to nourish it properly and move it in a way that makes sense to me. So to me, I'm worthy of that. Like, I'm worthy of that attention.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, I feel so much of so many of the words that you just said, which is, again, that's another form of nourishment, right? Is to genuinely open up the palate to be able to hear these statements of worth. And that I would probably say is a great place for all of us to begin
Mhm.
is is to start to open up our palate to the language of worth. Because when we can give a language to this, then we're able to at least give the mind something to chew on, to have an experience with, and then
Mhm.
start to create from that place. It The sweetness of not just the poetry, but the poignancy of what you just said over the last little bit. One of the most profound things was the no matter the shape of my body, I'm going to nourish it, no matter what. And then that it's almost like that statement opens up the palette to, oh, okay, so what is nourishing right now? It
Yeah.
opens the door to that question. And then our eyes get opened up to the answers, our taste buds start to open up to the answers, the things that we start paying attention to start to open up to the answers. But
Mm.
as women in particular, I find it so, so important to open up our palate to the language of self-worth. And whether it's in what we read or the people that we listen to, our capacity to hear the tone and the passion in the voice of expressions of self-worth, to be able to feel the resonance within ourselves and not recoil from that. Because like my experience, that recoiling from luxury, it wasn't the recoiling from luxury that was genuinely happening. It was the recoiling from the inability to recognize myself in the woman that I thought was worthy of those things. That's what I was recoiling from. It had nothing to do with who she was or what that was. There is sometimes a bit of a pause that we take, and we create some space between ourselves and the thing that we don't understand. So language is a beautiful place to start. It's actually a very safe place to start. Even the music that we listen to, we can start to expand our musical palette and understand that when something is not understood by us because we haven't been previously exposed to it, does not necessarily mean that it's bad for us. That little bit of recoil is not necessarily about anything telling us to run away from that thing. It's a statement of, this is unfamiliar, and it requires a little bit of space around it. And that's going to include the language that comes from other people who are speaking the language of worth. And once we start to hear that, and then we start to feel the resonance of it, and then we start to see the expressions of it, and then we start to almost taste what it would feel like to speak those words ourselves. Whew. To genuinely feel that what our mouths would feel like saying and stating those things, what the resonance of that would be, that's a beautiful thing. And try it on. Write the words out. I am worthy, and make a statement of one of the things that you feel that you're worthy of. But it's not something you have to negotiate, and you don't have to build a resume that legitimizes that worth.
Exactly. You're not going to university to live your own life, right?
Yeah.
Like your worth isn't about like earning credentials. And I think that you can earn credentials in order to build skill, and that's a totally different capacity, right? But it's not about being like, after I'm finished my master's program, can't wait for that to happen. But like after I'm finished my master's program and I have a few initials past my name, that doesn't mean that I am worthier of my own life. It means I have different skills than I did before I started. And so that opens up possibilities about how to apply those skills, but it doesn't make my worth any different. And I've certainly made a living, a great living. And one could argue, wow, like you sure did all right for yourself, considering you are, a witch.
Yeah.
And I think, why not, right? Because I'm still valuable. I can do what makes me happy. I don't have to actually follow and abide by what other people value in order for me to value myself and to value the things that I think are important. And I know that I've showed up in so many conversations where people have heard that I see them, I see them where they are, because I've lived a lot of trauma, that I can see trauma, I can live with it, I can hold it, I can expose it in a very safe place. And a lot of times people have never had those conversations before. Like, there's a reason why eating disorders are some of the most treatment resistant disorders, and why people die from them. People die from malnourishment in this part of the world.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
which is like in living in houses and stuff, they die of malnourishment. I think that is something people never really think about. You know, they think about malnourishment as something that happens over on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
It's not right that that happens either, but it happens a lot of the times for different reasons. You know, that here people are dying from malnourishment because they don't think that unless that their body takes up only a certain amount of space, that they're worthy to walk the earth,
Mm.
you know, or that other people are going to call them out. And I'd have to say we have to work through this individually, but also as a community, where we stop um, where we stop valuing each other based on like some sort of standard that is defined on computers. It's not even defined in human bodies. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even defined. It's defined on computers through Photoshop. Like these are things like beauty to me is like, whoa, you know, when somebody shows up and they're really authentic, I find that incredibly beautiful. But
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm at this point in my life where my neutrality around physical bodies, where I'm like, whatever size your body occupies is not a statement about your value. Like it's not a statement even about what you like to do with your world. Like I don't know anything about what somebody's habits are just because their body is a certain size, right?
Yep.
Like I think oftentimes you think, wow, that person's really athletic or that person's really lazy. And it's a question of body size. But I've met lots of athletes that are quite large and, you know, they have larger bodies and that they work out really hard and they bring it. They sweat hard. They kick my ass, you know, at anything.
Yeah.
I've been in a CrossFit room with people of all sizes, and it's astonishing what people are capable of, and their body size is not a prerequisite for those experiences, right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's so interesting that people think I can only have a good relationship if I'm a certain size. I can only get married if I'm a certain size. I can only attract someone else if I'm a certain size. And I can tell you from lived experience that's not true.
Right.
Um,
Right. You do not earn your admission to go to the beach based on the size of your body.
yeah,
That's even though there are a lot of people out there that will challenge that, your worth is in the very air that you breathe. That's where your worth is. And sometimes we do need to stand up for and breathe into our own worth, even while that other thing is happening. And you know, there's something interesting in that, because my daughter had some really interesting experiences with that, where because she's self-admittedly and it's well known she's on the autism spectrum, and there's some major challenges with that in socially, in particular in high school and in middle school. And try as people might to do all the passive aggressive and sometimes outright aggressive ways to let her know that she didn't belong. Part of it was in her inability to recognize the passive things, the exclusionary ways that people would behave around her, but also in her relentless pursuit of joy and relentless pursuit of experiences to be of service. They outweighed all of it. That's where her worth was. And she claimed her worth in those spaces, not in spite of what other people were doing, but because they were actually doing that as well. She was being the lived experience of the very people that she was wanting to represent. She just knew it better than those who looked the part and spoke the part and did all the right things. And even though she did not fit the stereotype of somebody who would be so well seen and well known in her school, she was. And she claimed that. She claimed that. She claimed her worth. It was a beautiful thing to witness. And I learned so much from her doing that. And now, because of that, she has a sensitivity to and has a palate for the people who love and adore her to such a degree that it brought her to Hamilton as opposed to somewhere else. Her sensitivity to that, not as a means to feel take a preemptive strike on rejection, but as a precognition for acceptance. That's what she has now because of all of that. It was a claiming of her that we marvel at her, right? Like that's a thing that we do.
I marvel at her all the time. And also you, I mean, your mothering of her has a lot to do with why she is in the world the way she is. I know she's her own person. I mean, we give Shivanya all the credit. Shivanya, amazing. Shivanya artist. Shivanya, like next level, gonna rock the world up. Shivanya, we give you all the credit, but I'm also looking at you and saying, good job, Mom, because there's something that you impressed upon her that gave her the space to step into that with some confidence, right? Like, I think that as long as we allow each other in circles, familial or otherwise, to encourage each other to take up space and say, like have a safe space to go every once in a while, you know what, I really want you to say more of those things. Or I really love your voice. Can you sing a little bit louder? Or I really love the way that you dance. I love watching that movement. I love being in the presence of your movement. And to encourage and to not like compete with and not say, well, that person is an amazing dancer and I suck, but rather say like, we're just bringing different things. I mean, a lot of times that is really the essence of what knowing your worth is that like I play ukulele, not well, but I like playing it. So I keep playing it. I don't imagine that I'm going to break out as a ukulele star anytime soon, but it brings me joy, right? So like when I play the ukulele, I'm not sitting there in the back of my head going, you know what, I totally suck at ukulele. Nobody better hear me. What I do is I'll just play it the way I play it, and I'll sing the way I sing, and people will like it or they won't like it. And it brings me joy. So that's enough.
Yeah.
That is enough.
That's right.
Right? So, I mean, I think if you're a musician, you might have different risk factors going on there. But for me, I'm not a musician. That's just one of the things that I do that brings me joy. And I feel totally worthy of that experience, even if I'm not awesome at it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the experiences that people are having now is feeling like they have to earn the status of awesome before determining their own worth in an experience. It's like, no, if you love it or you're curious about it even and would like to venture into that place, that is evidence of your worth. That alone.
Yeah.
Curiosity is evidence of your worth. Your willingness to take that risk is evidence of your worth.
Mm-hmm.
And
it will develop the palate as well, like to just take a small step in that direction.
Yeah.
You start tasting that. When you were talking about your Shivanya, hi Shivanya, your Shivanya moving into that space, and you're so proud of her, and you should be, that she's biolocating based on her own wants. Like I want to do that. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know how to afford it. I don't know the details, but I want it. So therefore, and I think, wow, if I had known that frame of thinking when I give all the praise to my mom and my dad for raising me. I mean, I love who I am. So, I don't have any complaints. And that wasn't the thought patterning that I had growing up. A lot of it was just sort of like make do with, when you have 5 kids in the family, there is that whole like make do situation, or like don't want too much, because if you want too much, then that's a problem for the whole, for the collective. And I'd say it's actually like kind of an active revolution to say that what I want is biolocating a flow of bringing that to me, of bringing it to me. The fact that I want it, if I say yes to it, it brings the waves to me of that thing. And at the risk of sounding real law of attraction, I've seen that play itself out as true time and time and time and time again, because my palate knows what's for me. It knows
Say
what
that
to
again.
select.
Say that again twice as loud.
My palate knows what's for me time and time again. My palate knows.
It knows.
My palate knows what's for me. It also knows what's not for me, right? So like, I'm not bothered at all if, as when I was dating, that if a date didn't work out, it was like, that just wasn't for me. That just wasn't for me. It's fine. Like, I'm not going to panic about something not working out for me. If it wasn't for me, it would have, if it was for me, it would have been for me. It would have been obvious, right?
Yeah.
And so, and if we can offload some of the stress that says there's something wrong with us as to why things aren't working out, and just go, well, that thing that didn't work out was actually not the thing that was for me. And work then upon expressing, taking up more space in developing palate, in developing experiences that feed our palate and feed our sense of worth, nourish us, so that we're ready. We can pick that thing, that we can select it. It'll be obvious.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
I love it. And I love you. And I love that we're doing this shit together, man. I love it. It's so great. I'm so excited about the place, having you there facilitating. I have nothing but deep respect for you as a movement. I mean, in general, but as a movement facilitator, Jen, you are like next level. You're masterful. And I am fussy about that. I think you've won best yoga teacher a couple of times in your town. Am I wrong about that? Like number one yoga teacher one time?
One time that I know of.
One time that you know of. And you're still number one in people's minds because you keep getting nominated, even though you're not teaching classes in that way anymore. But that we get to have you in your mastery in this experience is so important and so amazing. And I feel like we, as teachers, as co-facilitators, don't compete with each other. We blend super, super integrally. And the things that we bring together actually really weave.
Yeah. Well, and Donna, obviously I feel the same way about you. I am also very picky about what classes I attend. And first of all, I receive everything you just said. That is something that I've had to expand my palate to be able to discern between what is a compliment and what is being used as currency. And genuine compliments coming from you. And now I have very discerning tastes when it comes to such things. And that's pure nourishment coming from you. So thank you so very much. And again, as a longtime practitioner and a very discerning practitioner, your classes were some of the only ones that I really wanted to attend, because of the depth of knowledge, the deep passion for, the attention to detail, the deep study, and I could feel the depth of your study. And not only that, the level of caring enough, and sometimes even more than I did, about how I interacted with what you were delivering. You cared enough for all of us in those classes and in those spaces. And you sometimes, like, the edge of an experience can feel like you're right there at a door that's being held open and the wind is gusting and trying to shut that sucker on you the whole time. And you're that teacher that holds that door open and we're going, do I go through? Do I not? Do I go through? Do I not? And you're holding it and holding it and holding it. And then we walk through or not, but in most cases we would, and we'd like, oh, that's what's on the other side of this. But that door could so easily close for so many of us. And and that was in the movement practices. And there is not a person that I trust more on this planet, honestly, to deliver potent medicine more than you. I'm very cautious when it comes to medicine, whether that medicine is music or that medicine is words, because words can be medicine, they can also be poison. Whether that medicine is delivered as from the plants, ancient teachings, truths. Because truth is truth, yes. However, the context through which it's delivered does matter, and your attention to detail of that context is, well, it's like nothing I've ever experienced, to be completely honest. So I value it because I feel like you've walked through the fire, and what was forged in that fire is a remarkable human being, an incredible healer, a masterful teacher, and somebody who cares so deeply about every single detail, because you know the value of a detail that will bring brightness, and you also know the harm that a detail, either included or excluded, can do. That it might seem like a pebble to one, but it's actually a boulder in the life of a person for whom that is a trauma. So my utmost respect for you and all that you do. And as far, again, where palates have been expanded, the capacity to receive compliments is definitely one of them. So
thank you.
Which has given me the capacity to be able to deliver them as well, in a very sincere and heartfelt way.
Yeah, drink that, baby. I just drank that. That was really amazing. Thank you. And receive it. And my feeling is that I think back into the theme of like palates and worthiness, is that I think for a long time, I don't know if you relate to this, but when I would deliver so much, when you're talking about details, in the skill set, in the building of skill over the years of everything that I do, and I don't still know where a lot of it comes from. Like a lot of stuff comes to me because when I'm spending time with someone, that's what's there between us in the third thing that we're creating together. And I have a capacity to read it. I have the capacity to detect it. I have the palate for that. For that intimacy that would say, I'm just going to name that thing. I'm going to say that thing and risk you going, what are you talking about? Yeah. Or just say it and know that I can ask forgiveness, or I can move into a conversation if something gets confusing or hard. But most of what I did, coming up to maybe even my like mid 30s, late 30s, and I was teaching and, giving ceremony at that time and all that stuff. I was a mom of two. I had no real measurable self-esteem. Like, not like I did most things because I didn't feel worthy of the world. Like I didn't feel worthy of my own life. It's like I had to continue to prove my worth on this earth by doing these great acts. And I would pay attention to what would be received as positive and what would be received as negative. And I would develop sort of a measurement system around how do I use my energy in just the right amount of ways so this person can digest my words, or this person can receive what it is I'm teaching. I was really dialed into that. But a lot of that empathy came from trauma, came from me trying to be a good girl, trying to get by in a big family and and be seen.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes, when we retrieve our trauma and we understand that our worth is actually there as well, like our worth is unquestionable, but the mastery that we live in this world, the skills that we've created have come from some real, sometimes damaged places. And
Absolutely.
so when I look at people trying in this world, whatever it is they're trying to do, I look at them trying and I'm like, wow, uh, that strategy you're doing. Wow, you practiced that pretty hard.
Yeah.
But where do you want to go? And is that strategy getting you there?
Yeah.
Because you're always going to be good at that strategy. That strategy's with you. You've got it. You practiced it so well. You're never going to forget it. But is it getting you where you want? Is it getting you what you want?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it doesn't. And people tell this story, well, I can't want that thing then
Right.
because
Right.
I can never get it. I try really hard. But it's almost like, if you were talking to a fish about their skill set in climbing a tree, that fish might think they're not a good person or not a very talented person. But then you find some water for that same fish, and that fish is like, holy shit, this is my jam. And
Yeah.
then they're amazed about what it is they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, that's another part of worth, is like, know what's for you and what's not for you, and know that your worth is notwithstanding. That's not what's on the chopping block,
Right.
you know? And like, for me as a human being, when I started to get that understanding of my own worth, and that took a lot of healing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still on that journey. Like I'm still on that healing journey. It's taken a lot of healing for me to be able to say to myself and look at myself in the mirror and say, you know what, woman, you're fine. Like, walk out in the world, keep your head up, like, you're
Yeah.
fine. That For me to do that, it's taken immeasurable work. It's taken immeasurable work. And I I look at the company I keep. I think about this song that I love by Mamuse called "We Shall Be Known by the Company We Keep."
Mm.
We shall be known. And if I'm known by the company I keep, if I can look to the company that is naturally staying with me, that
Yeah.
I don't have to effort towards kinship, but that there's a natural flow, to have you in my world as company that I keep. And we have been through some cool shit together, and we keep finding ways to make each other laugh,
Yeah.
after like all of this time. The enjoyment and the delight of our presence, and the non-work that goes on
Yeah.
with that, the ease by which we experience each other's company, to me, teaches me something about worth.
Mm-hmm.
If I look at you, and I have so much respect for you that I couldn't like, I I have so much respect for you. I actually look at you move in the world and I'm like, how is this woman like doing what she's doing? Like, I don't even, it's really next level. Like, you're like a total ninja. Your body like just does things that I'm like, wow. As a person who appreciates movement, as a former professional dancer and a choreographer, I am a movement geek. Like, I love people's bodies in motion. And I could watch you move. I could watch you make tea, because your sense of integration in your body is like next level. And I think other people pick up on that. And so when you teach, you come from this like centuries old kind of soul around movement. So when you teach it, that's what I feel is like, wow,
Mm.
I'm learning from like this thousands of years old like sifu. And I don't know what the kung fu word is. Is that the right word,
That's
sifu?
the word. However,
uh,
it's that's a masculine term for it, but that's okay. I think seizure is what we say when it's a woman.
Oh, I
However,
like that, seizure.
but that term wasn't actually ever used because the only people who were ever allowed to officially teach were men, were sifus, which means
Right.
father, essentially.
Do you
And
know, I only know that word because of Kung Fu Panda, right? So
right, exactly. It's great. You got to love what you love, honestly. And,
I know, but also you'd be totally like the tigress character in that, like just so badass. Like you're just so badass. It's like people
I
don't
really
even know.
relate to her quite well. Loved her voice.
I think her voice was Angelina Jolie, I think.
Mm.
But and who did, what was that film she did where she was like flipping around, where she was like an action?
Well, Salt was one of them. Is that the one that you're referring to? Oh no, are you
No,
talking like Tomb Raider, like that?
Tomb Raider. Yeah. That's like you could totally do Tomb Raider now and you wouldn't need a stunt double.
I feel like it. It's awesome. But that was a
I think you
reclamation
could.
that like in to feel free enough to keep this body doing those things.
Mm.
That it's even though there's a cajillion things that point to why that shouldn't happen, I'm like, I don't not no. And I think that is what stimulated the initiation of truly embodying worth was, and it wasn't because of all the things that I've done with this body over the years and how much I've loved movement and loved the human body. And I mean, it's my first love affair, I would say, is with the human body. And it seemed to have sparked something in terms of I know how to do worth. I know how to do this thing. This is not foreign to me. And I'm not what I had to unlearn was being given permission to do some aspect of what I want and what I'm choosing as worthy. And so that was the first thing. And then there was the taking up space, the doing of those things and the expression of that sense of worth in places where it didn't seem welcome. And yet that's where I'm standing. So that's where worth is going to be. That's where I'm breathing. So that is where worth is going to be. In fact, my breath does not move into and out of a place without worth being a part of it. And that is the shape of my breath now.
Ooh.
And I feel when it's not, because this body shaped that breath like that. It's all integrated. It's every last bit of it is integrated. So when we think of even the voice and how it comes out and will say certain things, this body that does those things that I think I do them just because they're cool. I think they're cool. And I might look like an idiot trying to do them and then eventually can, which I'm so grateful that happens for me, and that there's stuff in all of this that supports all of it. And yet the words that come out of my mouth are shaped by this body. It's not just from the vocal cords. It's everything, and it's the animal underneath all of that that is possible. And the angel from above it that whispers, yes, yes, yes. And it's the alchemy of those two things that allows those words to come out. Where before, because it wasn't the body attached to it, I didn't feel like I had a voice. That voice was not given permission to speak or to say what I felt or to say what I thought. It felt so disconnected from all of this. It didn't even feel like it had permission to say no unless somebody else made that okay. So, but going to the genius of this body that has been solving complex problems that my intellect knows nothing of, solving these incredibly complex problems and going, okay, genius, you determine what the shape of the breath is that's going to come out. And that there is worth in that. It's the embodiment of worth. And I will let that lead the way. That's really, it's learning from something that nature created, has been showing me how to do for very long. And I have finally given myself permission to put all of the other stuff aside and let my genuine experience of what worth is lead the way in so many other arenas, and be a little bit kind of goofy and messy with it sometimes too. Like that, it may not be as practiced as some of the physical movement pieces are. And if I've survived trying new things in the physical realm, in the movement realm, I can certainly survive things in the verbal and the vocal realm. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Totally. And that's my process, right? I think everybody has their own in this arena when it comes to awakening or remembering what worth is. It's not as far away as we think. It's usually about 2 degrees or 2 centimeters away from where we are right now. Our genuine, real, like fully embodied understanding of it is not as far away as we think it is. Yet it is as close as we feel it is. And to be able to genuinely know what that felt experience is, and then think that this is something I'm going to stretch into. It's not something I have to leap into. It's a stretch. It's not a leap.
Yeah, beautiful. It is a stretch. It's a stretch. Yeah. Sometimes we leap a little bit, but it's mostly stretch, right? It's like the tightness of your body is only going to contain certain amount of stories. You have to sometimes open it up in order to be like the flexibility of your body determines, and the flexibility of your breath, the flexibility of your willingness, that determines forward momentum, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So you holding that space in this retreat, I think people, with the women that come, the women folk that come, this is like serious blessing, you know. It's a serious blessing to be a part of whatever it is that you bring. And it's a serious blessing to me that we get to co-create and I actually keep adding layers of excellence. Yeah. Like, to me, this whole retreat is like a tiramisu that is like next. It's like it was dreamed about by like the gods and goddesses, you know, this tiramisu. Because we've got you, and we've got me, and we've got Adam Ziorio taking candids of the women for the ceremony, like some candid photos, so that we give these as gifts. We've got, and he's just so lovely. I don't know how you felt at that first photo shoot with him, but it seemed like you were pretty relaxed and enjoyed it.
And I had been surrendered to the fact that I'm just not photogenic. And I have said this before, and people go, "Oh no, you're great," da, da, da. And then they'll see the photos afterwards and go, "Oh yeah, you're that's not what I expected." Even other photographers have said that. Like, you know, when I was about to take the photo and everything looked so fine, everything. And then I got the pictures. I looked at the pictures afterwards, and there was an edge, or there was something else that was there. So I don't know what would happen, but somehow Adam was able to tap into a place of ease within me, and I suspect that he was able to do the same thing with you also.
Oh, like he healed that for me, because I was terrified of getting my photo taken.
That's such a beautiful, beautiful statement, that a photographer was to heal that even the fear of getting photos taken, or a resistance to it. You know, it's not something I actively run away from, but it's certainly not something that I have embraced. But it was genuinely enjoyable, and that you and I got to spend some time together, and
it was a beautiful day.
was really a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And I truly enjoyed that. But Adam did not feel like an interloper in that experience. And I think that's quite vital in having a photographer participate in this type of event, is that he knows how to be of service without being extremely overt or obvious about his presence. His service.
Yeah, we won't know he's there.
We won't know he's there.
We won't know he's there at all. Like he came to photograph our Bieltana ceremony. We didn't even know he was there. Like we were just doing our ceremony, and the photos from that Bieltana ceremony, which if anyone's interested is on my Instagram, it's also on Facebook. Lots of those photos were all dressed in red. A lot of them were candid photos, and we didn't see him anywhere. Like he just sort of like was a little magic man, like taking these candid photos. And the photos were beautiful, like next level beautiful, because none of them were being posed for. Like nobody was like, like we were just doing our thing. And it was so amazing what he was able to create. So that's why I wanted him to come, because I wanted women to get this view of themselves that maybe they hadn't had before, and then have that as a memorial. And that all the pictures that we get are not just like, well, those are all the pictures we have. He's going to choose like the most amazing ones, and he's going to edit them properly, and they're going to look amazing. They're going to look at pieces of art. And then we have Ari Neufeld, who is doing a couple things for us, right? Like he's doing this flavor buffet of like beautiful, complementary, but sometimes unusual flavor combinations, so that we can expand our flavor palette in our lunch times. And then he's playing music on Saturday night for us, and I'm like, oh my God, could we possibly, this is like a layer cake of excellence. And the foundation, the Oreo cookie base of our tiramisu cake, or our ladyfinger base of our tiramisu cake, is Sparkling Hill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's like, you don't get dessert that is anywhere close to that. That's like, that dessert was made by angels.
Yeah.
And pixies.
Made by angels to nourish the animal.
Yeah, as a gift to your own inner tiger. Yeah.
To be loved so much, to create something so nourishing. Yeah. Acknowledging exactly who and what we are at any given moment. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I feel so honored to be a part of it, honestly.
Me too. But I'm so excited about it that I can't tell you, like there aren't words for how excited I am, just because it's so excellent. Like every time I think about the whole package, it's so excellent.
Now, I can't.
How did we? I'm sorry. I was like, how do we actually get all of this under one roof at one time? Like this is going to be amazing. Yeah. And with that, my dear, I think I'm going to sign off, and thanks for talking to me tonight. And thank you, all of you. If you're interested, go to my website. If you're interested in the Be Worthy event, it's go to my website, theweaveworkschool.com, and it's under events. You'll see the big banner of Be Worthy. Or you can DM me or DM Jen, and we can give you more information. And right now, as of today, this is Wednesday, July the
6th.
What's the date today? The 6th? Yeah. We still have spots as of today. All right. Love you, woman.
Love you. Thank you for this. This was really fun. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to spending this time with us and hanging out and being here with us and participating along the way. It's been really fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.